Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to another Sentinel story. I have another guest for us, Mr. Nelson. Welcome.
Thank you.
I have been wanting to interview you. There's some things that I'm very curious about.
Oh
It's
no.
music. It's music.
Yeah.
We have a lot of
Yeah.
musicians in the house in our building, so that is really great. Um, I will get to that. I know the audience really wants to know about that. But what's your role at Spanaway Lake and how long have you been there?
Yeah. This is my third year at Spanaway Lake. I am one of our assistant principals. I've rotated some responsibilities each year. So this year I get to oversee 11th and 12th grade. And then I've been consistent with the departments and some of the programs I oversee. So I work with our social studies and our world language department,
Mhm.
as well as our AP program, our advanced placement program. And then I oversee a grant that we got a couple years ago from the National Math and Science Institute that helps us to support some of our AP classes that we run, really trying to really diversify the STEM science, the STEM AP classes that we're
Mhm.
offering, and working to provide access to kids not only physically in the space of the classroom, but intellectually in the field of math and science.
So making it more accessible for a variety of students, like
Yeah,
basically everybody can access it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Not
that's
just
good.
physically, but intellectually as well.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. So tell me, what are some of the highlights that you have had for the school year so far? And what are
Oh,
you looking forward to?
this year. Um, this year, okay, so I have some favorite pieces this year. I have been able to shift my responsibilities. Normally, an assistant principal picks up a lot of the discipline that happens in and around a school, and
Mhm.
with remote learning, that discipline has fallen off quite a bit. And so I've been really able to dive into my like organizational leadership side of my job, which I love.
Mhm.
So this is really nerdy, but I've
It's
been able
fine.
to look at data. I've had time to like look at our school data and to really like help our team develop some goals, and to look at the systems that we're playing out on a regular basis and tighten some
Mhm.
of those pieces up. And so it's been a really nice. I say this, it's been a really nice reprieve from some of the day-to-day pieces that happen when we're in person, and allowed me to expand professionally in some of the other spaces that um, you know are part of the job too.
Right. Yeah, expanding that idea of looking at data and trying to implement change with that data. You're having plenty of time to do that, but then also solidifying those organizational skills and reviewing data. It's like a muscle that you work, and the habit that you do it, you could do it quicker so that when we are all back together, you could still have that piece incorporated along with
Yeah.
the other things that are the kind of day to day when we're face to face.
Yeah, and it's tricky, because you can look at numbers and data, and like it doesn't truly represent the stories that are behind those numbers.
Right.
And so there's a balance that needs to be struck in terms of analyzing the numbers that you see in front of you, and also understanding the narratives that make up those numbers, so that you can make informed decisions about how to support people within the school.
Yeah. Conversations are everything. So, what are some, number one, where did you go to high school and what were some valuable lessons that you learned from high school, whether they were from good experiences or bad experiences? What were some takeaways that you have with you to this day?
Okay. I went to enumclaw High School, and I am a fourth generation enumclaw like resident, I guess.
Okay.
We were born and raised in enumclaw. My great grandparents immigrated there from Norway and from Italy, and they worked at the original Weyerhaeuser mill. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so my grandparents grew up in that area. My grandpa Bob. Was raised on at the mill, and then was deployed in World War II, and came back and found my grandmother, and they raised a family in Enumclaw. And out once he got out of the army, he joined the postal service, and so he would do his route, and he would finish his work about the same time kids would finish school. And
Hmm.
so he would always meet kids at the ballpark and go throw batting practice
Oh
for
my God, that's
the
so
kids.
fun.
So a couple of years ago, they renamed that ballpark Bob Nelson Field, and so
Oh gosh.
it's kind of our like it's our fun place to be. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then my dad grew up there with him, and left to go pursue his educational career in Federal Way, but then eventually came back and was superintendent of enumclaw. So he was one of two superintendents in the state that was serving in the district that he graduated from.
Wow.
So fun way to like give back to the community.
Hmm.
And then on top of that, my mom was the CEO of Plateau Outreach Ministries, and so she oversaw the food bank and our let's see, the food bank and the thrift store and all of the utilities and rental services that enumclaw puts out that way.
Hmm.
And so really just tied to hometown in that sense. So high school was um, it was very like interdependent with our like social life, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. It was
Because it's
really
a smaller town.
because it's a small town,
Yeah.
and you know the things that happen in a small town end up in small town papers.
Yeah.
So it was not uncommon for our family's name to show up in the paper, both
Right.
for positive reasons and oftentimes under criticism for
Right.
you know, some of the moves that Dad was making at
Yeah.
school and in the editorial section. So I watched that play out in a small town, and there were some really like defining moments, some pretty hurtful things that would come out, and so I learned in high school very quickly how to like protect myself and develop like coping mechanisms for that.
Yeah.
Maybe in you know like protect myself in even some unhealthy ways that I've had to learn to like bring down some barriers too. Um, but I feel like high school, most of my learning happened outside of school and actually happened in rehearsals and private lessons
Hmm.
because I was so involved in music. And so, you know, I hit my junior and senior year and I was playing about 40 hours of music a week.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a full-time job.
it is. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I loved it. It was so great. It kept
Right.
me busy. And it kept me out of the small town politics, which I loved even more.
Mm.
Um, yeah, because Enumclaw was, you know, it's old traditional town, right? The focus was athletics, right? So
Right. Yeah.
I played sports to be relevant. You know, I played on the tennis team to say that I did a sport, but I was involved in music. And so, you know, my junior, senior year, I had two classes of music during my school day. So I would wake up early and go to 0 hour jazz band, and then we would have orchestra after that. And then I was playing in our church choir at the time. So we would have rehearsals, and then I would play on Sundays. And I was playing as a part of the Tacoma Youth Symphony at the time.
Hmm.
And so my Saturdays, I would wake up and I would go do, you know, 3 to 4 hours of rehearsal with Tacoma Youth Symphony. And I would drive straight. I don't know what my parents were thinking. I'm not sure that I have the guts to let Carter do this. They said, okay, go to your rehearsal. And they would send me off to go drive to Tacoma from Enumclaw. So I would drive there,
Right.
do my rehearsal, and then I would drive up to Magnolia, which is north of Seattle,
What?
from Tacoma for like a 2 hour cello lesson with my cello teacher. And so my Saturdays were like this 8 to 5 of like, you know, long rehearsal, and then I'm going straight to a really intense cello lesson. My
Right.
cello teacher was very intense, and so that's where my education happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, right. Because it sounds like along with music, there was a lot of responsibility, self-management, time management, structure. You kind of organized your time when you were kind of independently going through the lessons of your day from 8 to 5.
Yeah, and people don't see this unless you're in the game. People don't recognize that music is just as competitive as like high-end athletics. And
Right. Oh,
so,
yeah.
like you get into that like select sports team parent mentality, kid
Hmm.
mentality, and like high level music is exactly the same way. You have, you know, parents that are way into it and donating lots of money to make sure their kids are showing up at the front end of the orchestra.
Right.
And not that that happened. Um, but
No, but I think it does. There's a lot of things that, um, man, parent involvement or caregiver involvement, it just kind of changes things. Like the first thing that came to mind is youth sports as you're talking to me about like youth symphony or orchestra, and just the intensity for which people are. And I know that parents, caregivers really want their kids. I know that we want our little ones to find a passion in something,
Mhm.
and be connected to that. But I also know like our demeanor, my demeanor, I'm a really laid back parent, which is gonna either hurt or not. um,
It's gonna be great.
but I'll probably be like my mom. My mom went to like all of the events. I was a cheerleader for just 1 year, but I played volleyball and did some other things. But as a single mom, she was always in the stands. I would hear my name occasionally, but she was kind of this silent silent presence, but she was always like a presence there at any of my events that I participated in. So I see myself as that. And also, she was kind of the mama bear. If there was something that she saw that she may have had to intervene,
Mhm.
she was there to do so on my behalf as, you know, one of the few Black children in a predominantly white school. I think also her presence. And if she wasn't there, she had somebody else there as well. So,
Did you ever find, this was my experience. I tried desperately, just absolutely desperately, to keep my parents out of any sort of involvement with the school or youth symphony or anything, because I understood the power dynamics that were at play.
mhm.
Dad, as like, he was assistant superintendent at the time, but can you imagine calling a parent teacher conference and the assistant superintendent shows up and it's like, man, that is not fair to the teachers. And so like I tried desperately in order to protect teachers to
Right,
keep my parents out of as much as possible.
right.
um, yeah.
It yeah, those dynamic it's an interesting dynamic. Well, we're gonna jump into some other questions, some fun, some serious, but all really relevant. It just kind of I ask the same questions of our participants just to see how our stories connect. And we have so much in common with each other within the building. So it's kind of fun to see how they all come together. So, first question for you. Um, I can help others in school by.
Hmm. I think I think a lot of my work is about support, right?
Mhm.
John D. Pilatus, our music teacher, was
Mm,
telling me that the Latin root of administrator is like the hands that support. And
mm,
so when you think about that in the context of education, it's the hands that support educating, right? So what are the supports that need to be in place in order for teachers to teach and for students to learn?
mhm,
Um, and how do you make those things happen? And so at the root of that comes a lot of listening,
mhm,
and trying to figure out. I'm constantly seeking how to be responsive to needs, right? Whether it's a parent's needs or student needs or teacher needs or whatever it is, I'm trying to figure out how to be responsive to the needs that they have, while also figuring out like how do we empower the people in those positions so that they can be the best version of themselves when they're engaging in work here.
yeah. Um, I am talented at.
Um, can I be a downer for a second?
No,
I don't know. I
you
don't know.
can be, you speak your truth. What we say, we don't say it's being a downer. We just say
Okay,
that, can I speak my truth? And
I'm
you
gonna speak
always have
my
the
truth.
invitation.
I grew up in a family of athletes, and I was one of the few like musicians, and
Hmm.
I was always told how talented I was at music, and I don't know that I believe in talent. I think I worked my butt off
Hmm.
to become good at music. And I think I had some experiences along the way of like how my parents brought me up that helped with that, helped give me exposure to music. But I worked really, really hard to develop that skill set so that I would be perceived as talented at music. And same in a lot of other areas. And so I think I'm very skilled at music. I've worked very hard to be good at music.
Right.
I'm working very hard to be a good leader,
Mhm.
and to be a good father, to be a good husband. Um, you know, but I don't know about talent.
Yeah,
I struggle with talent. I'm not sure about it
that's
yet.
a good take. I've never thought about it in that way. That's I get it. When people say that professional athletes are talented, well, it's like when you spend 24 hours a day, seven
Yeah,
days a week, and you have a diet and a personal trainer and all of these things, and your being is focused towards that goal, and you're building up, like everybody starts from some place.
yeah. I mean, I told
Yeah.
you I was 16 and 17 putting 40 hours of time into music every,
Yeah.
you know, it didn't happen magically. And I wasn't
Right.
just like my first day of orchestra, I did not pick up a cello and just magically play this concerto.
Right.
You
Right. Because
know?
that would be talented if you
That
just
would be,
naturally
you know,
picked
prodigy,
up
right?
things.
I am not
Yes.
a prodigy by any means.
If your son or my son just came up to a piano and started playing piano as a little person, be like, what is happening?
Yeah, we would need to re-strategize what we're doing in the house. I don't know about
Exactly.
you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that perspective on talent. Um, let's see. I accept others' differences by
Listening to understand. I think, you know, I grew up in enumclaw, right? Very dominant culture, very white culture, um, and that just is. And so I've been working to understand that and how that impacts like my day to day life, and how that impacts the way I interact with other people, how that impacts how other people interact with me.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so recognizing that perspective, as kind of my like foundation, um, I also have to recognize the areas that are not within that foundation and the experiences that I have not had. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's where differences come in, right? It's rooted in experience. And so working to listen to people's experience and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, understand it to the best of my abilities, while also understanding that, um, I may never truly be able to fully understand.
Right. Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
accepting that fact and just listening and honoring narrative and then finding ways to empower.
Yeah. Let's see. When a friend is hurting,
Um, I go spend time with them. Um, usually I bring them some food. I believe in my dad's a big cook. He loves making food, and that's become our family's love language. So we will often deliver food, to friends and family, who are hurting, and just go share a meal together if we can. Right? Obviously, if we're not in quarantine, we're not
right.
amidst a pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's something healing about just having some time together, and
Mm-hmm.
people are different, right? So different people have different needs, right? And some people will say, I want to talk about it, I want to process. And so just being there to listen and be a part of that processing. And some people say, you know what, I really just need a distraction right now.
Yeah.
So bringing my son over and being a little bit of a distraction.
Yes.
He's, you know, spinning around the couch and doing whatever he's doing. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, just I think, you know, trying to hear what people's needs are in the moment and meet those as best you can.
Yeah, definitely. When I am sad,
I think I process. I play music, um, which in turn like has its triggered response. Like you become a musician and you work really hard, and then you start getting the funeral calls. I don't know if that's an experience for anyone else, but you get the funeral calls, and you get they loved listening to you play so much. We would love for you to come be a
oh
part of their celebration of life. And
gosh,
so
yeah.
like this sadness emotion like has it's complex,
Mm-hmm.
if that's a thing. Um, so yeah, I play music when I'm sad. I run. You and I have talked about running before.
Yeah.
That that helps me process. More than anything, I think I just try and give myself space for whatever grieving process is going to happen. Um, so much of that is like based on like context in the given moment, and so having gone through some like some pretty intense grieving processes on my own. I've just recognized that there's a process, and you know what, it's going to be a little bit different every time. And so just allowing that like self-forgiveness to just like own what's
Yeah.
going to be.
Yeah. Self-compassion is everything when it comes to the grieving process. Being patient with yourself and loving yourself and surrounding yourself with the people that can give you the laugh when you need it, can cry with you if you need it, can break bread with you when you need it. That's, yeah. Um, let's see. I am worthwhile because.
Mm. Um, I'm worthwhile because I'm capable of loving people. How's that for an answer?
I'll take
I
it.
don't know. Yeah, I think love is at the root of a lot of the things we do,
Mhm.
or lack of love, right? Sometimes, and like seeking to understand those pieces of like where does motivation, like where does love fit into your motivation to either engage in an act or not engage in an act.
Mhm.
Um, but I think I'm worthwhile because I'm capable of loving people.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Others say that I am.
Intentional.
Mhm.
Oh, it gets me every time. There is no room in my house to like have just like, oh, I just decided to do something, because my wife's like, no, you don't decide to do anything like that. You think about these things for months and sometimes years in advance. And so
Right.
she gives me a hard time that I don't make any spur of the moment decisions, that there is always some sort of process that is usually, weeks and months in advance.
Right. Right. Well, what a spontaneous gift you can give her by being spontaneous.
Oh man, yeah.
The person I admire most is,
Mm.
and again, you can make this question any way you want it to be.
I've got a team,
Yeah.
like and people who I like value for different aspects of their life, right? I don't No one's perfect, right? We all bring our flaws to the table
Mhm.
as a piece of ourselves. And so um you know I person I value most is, was that the wording?
The person that you admire the most.
Admire the most.
Mhm.
um yeah, admire my mom and my dad,
Mhm.
um and just the amazing work that they do as both as individuals, but then also as a couple, in terms of like building people up and building communities up. I admire my wife because she puts up with me. I'm not
I
an
was
easy
agreeing.
person.
Okay, listen, I was agreeing aggressively, but not because she puts up with you. I
No,
just know
no,
her
no.
profession is.
It
So
would take
you
five
kind of
minutes
like
in our
set
house
me
for you
up a
to
little bit.
no, no, no. But I absolutely admire my wife. And just what she brings to the table. Really, you should see her with our son. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She is the most amazing mother that anyone could ask for their child, and it is so fantastic to watch her with Carter, and to see how she takes care of him. And so
Yes.
I absolutely admire her for that. And then, I mean, along the way, you pick up these heroes, right? Like
Hmm.
my cello teacher is my absolute hero. She immigrated from Russia, and her ability to like teach to student needs, I've never seen before.
Hmm.
Um, I was not a practicer. I didn't practice music at home ever, which is like this horrible like confession to make as a musician. And she was like, she took me as I was and was just like, I don't care that you don't practice. I'm gonna have you sign up for all of these extra things. You just constantly for me to play
we're
music.
making up for time.
Yeah. And then when
Yeah.
you show up to lessons, I'm just gonna teach you how to practice. And that's what your lesson is gonna be about. And so I admire her for that.
Hmm.
So that was, yeah. And then, I mean, a myriad of,
Yeah.
family members, and I admire my in-laws. Um, I, my mother-in-law is pretty fantastic. So they own a chain of pharmacies in the area, and the pharmacy has my father-in-law's name on it. But my mother-in-law is the one who does, like, she's the behind the scenes that makes
Right.
it happen. And so that like um, notion of like engaging work that people don't necessarily see um, is pretty cool to me. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you. I appreciate you definitely, man, you've given me some new things to think about, especially around the word talent. I like that extension of it, and also just the idea of, the question that I posed to you is like like the person you admire most, but um, when you, I don't know, when you engage, your family is so community oriented, so then you're accessing all of these different people, then I can see how multiple people you would put at high admiration. And I feel similar to you as well. I was very much as raised by a single parent, but raised within a community. It takes a village, and I'm a single mom, and my son has a village as well. And so therefore he will have a lot of different people kind of to admire, as I do and you do, because of that kind of community orientation. So I appreciate that so much. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, just thank you for having me be a part of this. I I think I told you before. This is Carter and I will listen to these every morning we get on the weekends. Every Saturday we get on weekends. So my wife works nights, and so she's not home pretty frequently. Like Friday to Saturday is kind of like one of her go-to shifts. And so Carter and I will wake up Saturday morning and put one of these stories on, and it's been such a great way for us to bring new voices and new ideas into the house amidst a pandemic when we're not, seeing people regularly. So thank you
Definitely.
for doing this.
Of course, of course. And I definitely look forward to seeing you in person one day soon. Lots of planning, lots of creativity. I know that we're all doing a lot of work to kind of stay connected to our community. I'll make sure that Mr. Nelson's contact information is in the description of this video. Families, juniors, seniors, anybody, call the main office, call us, engage with us. We want to make sure that we're taking care of everybody. All right. So have a good day.